Daniel Harding, thank you so much for joining us. So many people in their 30s feel bleak. The realization that they probably won't do as well as their parents, staples like marriage, home ownership, or children are either unattainable or they might not even want them. So, what does living well in your 30s look like to you?
Well, first of all, I'm in my 20s, so I wouldn't know. Um, no, living well in your 30s. Do you know what? In my 20s, I was really sort of anxious to get a lot done, and I thought I need to do this, this, and this. I need to reach these goals. I need to do this. And then when I hit my 30s, I think I actually had a self-evaluation and cried when I hit 30, and then realized actually I can slow down but still do things. And I think living well is about balance. I think that's the thing. I think you've got to obviously reach your goals because I think it's great to have ambition and I think it's great to have passion about projects. But I think living well in your 30s is more about the balance of your life. Have you got a good social? Have you got a good work ethic? Have you got a good, like, sort of mental health state and fitness state? And I think it's actually in your 30s, you realize all of these things are actually more important than the things in your 20s, which would have been quick cash, quick snog, and a nice night out. Now, I love all of those things, but in your 30s, I think you're a little bit more sort of, okay, now let's hone in on these and have more of a balanced life. So, living well in your 30s, I think, is for me all about finding my balance, and I'm gradually finding it. I mean, it's a step by step.
This is good, but I did hear a quote before and it said something like life is not about having it all, it's about giving it all. And I think that some people try and balance too many things. Like there aren't enough hours in the day to have a good sex life, a gym hot bod, a great job, an amazing social life, raising children, doing a side hobby, making time for your friends and family. Like there's not enough time. Have you found it a struggle to balance all of those things that you maybe want to do?
I think you're right. I think like if you think of like a pie chart, those old school days, where you like have the slices of like what percentage you give each thing. I think like I'm probably struggling in certain areas. I mean, as you probably know, I am such a career guy. I am right, okay, my career needs to be great. My side hustles, my books, I need to focus on everything. And everything else seems to take a back seat. So that's things like love, social, family, sometimes fitness, but I seem to be prioritizing that sometimes. But
Very nice.
so thank you, cheers. But yeah, I do think it's hard. I think even though I'm sort of like focusing and trying to find balance, you neglect different areas of your life. And I think that's just living. I think that's just everyone. And I think at times in life, you just have to forgive yourself and be like, yeah, okay, that did take a little backseat this year, but bring it back. Actually, something that a good friend of mine once said to me, it's about like sort of having goals and realizing these are the goals you want to achieve, but if you don't reach those goals always, then don't be too hard on yourself. Discover what you did reach and be quite thankful for that. So I think it's all about, yeah, finding what works for you. Perhaps if you do neglect things, circling back.
Do you
It's hard.
feel any sort of fear, like as you get older, like oh my god, it's another year, I'm getting older, I'm not 22 anymore and just dancing around, or even fear from like looking at your parents' lives sometimes thinking, my god, when they were my age, they had a mortgage and they had three kids and they had all of this stuff going on. Do you feel that, or are you comfortable sort of running your own race?
I am absolutely not comfortable. I feel the fear every day. It is Valentine's Day. I put on aftershave for you. I did my hair and I, I haven't got a Valentine's Day date, and that scares me. And every year I get older and I think of, okay, I'm prioritizing different things, but perhaps not my love life, even though I do date a lot. I am always scared. I'm scared that I have so much inside of me, and I think this is such a trend with lots of people. We have so many ambitions and so many goals that every year it's a race to sort of get things done. And I think that for me, I have the fear. I live with the fear. It's not yearly, it's daily and sometimes hourly. And sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm waking up with the fear. And I think for me, that fear probably to my detriment overrides me, like, but also that fear challenges me, pushes me, makes me work harder because I am scared. I look at my parents and they're both very fortunate, very healthy and stuff, and I'm pleased for that. But I want ambition. I want things before I get to an older age. And yeah, I definitely live with the fear. Do I sound sexy, by the way? I've got a bit of a cold at the moment, and apparently that makes people sexy.
So sexy. I feel like after this goes out, your dream husband is going to find you, and it's all going to work out from this podcast, actually. So that'll be good for you. Yeah. Is there anything that you do when you have the fear? Have you got any ways of, any hacks around giving yourself a break or just, trying to make sure that that fear doesn't become the overriding force in your life?
Yeah, do you know what? So again, someone told me, or actually I might have read it, but to with your fear, everyone has a fear, okay, whatever that might be, and it changes throughout your life, throughout the year. I have probably 80 fears, and so they all come at me at once. But some I read somewhere, or someone said to me, I can't quite remember, but you should always run head on at your fear. So you shouldn't sort of avoid it. You shouldn't push it under the carpet. So for me, if ever I'm feeling that sort of, I don't know, that tension, that moment, that worry, I try really hard, which doesn't always work, but to sort of address it and be like, okay, well, what am I worrying about? What is this fear that's bubbling inside of me? What do I need to do to sort of conquer it? And it could be anything from, as little as, gosh, I feel a bit sluggish and I feel like I'm a bit out of shape. Do something exercise wise to sort of get back into it. Or is it that my mind is sort of racing and I need to sort of like recharge and I'm doing too much work and so I need to take a break, whatever that looks like. So for me, my hack is to really face it head on, to address the fear and see what I can do to sort of challenge it, to change it, to swap it basically for something more positive. The other thing that I would do, which is a hack, is I think everyone probably surrounds themselves by people that they love or like a lot. And I think for me, having someone or multiple people that you can go to as outlets is so important. I have a very good friend who I often meet at the Old Compton Brasserie. We have a couple of olives, we have a couple of cocktails, and we just sit there for probably too long. And the waiter keeps coming over, bringing us more. He has a Long Island iced tea, I have a Cosmopolitan, and we drink and chat. And it's like therapy. And I think for me, like all of your fears in that moment can be discussed with those really close friends. And that for me is a hack in itself.
He sounds great. I'd love to meet this guy.
Oh, he's a bit of an arse.
I liked what you said around facing the fear. Actually, because I'm a very organized person, so one of the things I wrote down this year for 2025 was that I wanted my sort of motto or theme to be enjoy uncomfortable. Because I
Mm,
do think in 2024, when something was uncomfortable or I was a bit nervous about it, I would sort of delay it, push it down the road, half do it. But actually, you find that when something's uncomfortable, if you just go for it and you just get started, actually you sort of think, oh, it's done. It's sorted, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. And actually, that's how you sort of build up your confidence from tackling the things that you're a bit worried about.
I think that's such a good message and mantra. And I love that you have that, by the way.
Yeah.
So repeat that again. What is it?
Enjoy uncomfortable.
Okay, so I love this because it can be sort of addressed in many situations because I think for everyone we feel uncomfortable at different times. So I love what you've done there and finding enjoyment out of that uncomfortable sort of moment I think is really important. I think of myself sometimes on whether it's work or if I'm sort of on camera or I'm on a stage or I'm doing something. And I think you have this pressure just before you do something or the camera rolls and you think, oh, this does not feel good. I'm going to forget my lines. I'm going to stutter and stuff. and you forget so much to enjoy. Oh my gosh, this is actually a huge moment. Like you're doing something you love, or you're talking about something you love, and you really should enjoy that sort of uncomfortable moment. So, more power to you, Lewis. Wow, what a message to take away from this.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to
Great.
enjoy my uncomfortable.
Right.
I'm uncomfortable in dark rooms though, so I won't be enjoying that.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Right. You wrote a book called Gay Man Talking, available at all good bookstores. And in the book, you explore relationships and self acceptance. So, what has been the biggest personal revelations you've had since writing your book?
Yeah, so Gay Man Talking is, I guess it's my first baby, so I feel very passionate and attached to it. And because it's a collection of conversations that I had to have, it kind of changed me as a person and changed the way I thought about something. And it really, I feel the biggest thing I take out of it is it made me grow. And I think that I was never comfortable with my sexuality before it was published, and that I think that's the truth. And so the biggest thing for me is it helped find an identity. I feel like the community embraced the book, but also took the messages that I was hoping that they would from the book, which was have conversations, talk to your loved ones, be who you are, find out how they were feeling when you came out. And I think Gay Man Talking is all about encouraging people to open up. And I think that's something we don't do enough of. So for me, having all of those conversations was like a breath of fresh air. And it really, really did. And it has changed my life. And I think that we don't talk enough and we often sweep things under the carpet and we forget that whatever moment, and this can apply to anyone, this doesn't even have to be a queer person, but whatever big moment in your life, it could be a job change, it could be marriage, it could be a relationship, it could be a death, it could be coming out, whatever huge moment that sort of changes or defines something, you do need to address it and be like, okay, how were other people feeling? How did you feel? And make sure that everyone is sort of on the same page. And I think having conversations is a great starting point there. And I learned that. And that was my
So,
first book.
very nice. No, it's a very good book. I actually helped promote it with my
Oh,
clothes
you
on.
did. Didn't you take your clothes off for it?
I did take. That's what a good friend I am. You were like promote this book, and I literally, use my own body to do it. So there we
Well,
go.
it's let's be honest, it's a good body. So it's a good body and a good
Thank you
book.
very much. I
What a
mean,
marriage.
in those 30s now, it's an aging body. No, no one will want me to do that with the next book. So, what are the key ways modern relationships? So, some of the things you talk about in the book, like romantic, friends, like how do you feel those things are evolving today?
I think everything evolves, and that probably seems such a simple statement, but it's so true because I think we forget how fast things do evolve. And I think, like, I look back at my coming out at 18 years old and remember it so differently to how I see people coming out today. Don't get me wrong, I've spoken to younger people today who still struggle to come out, and I think there is still a huge struggle to obviously come to terms with it, to tell your parents, to let society accept you. But I think for me, seeing things evolve and change, I think is just a natural process and I love it. I actually really enjoy witnessing things change. I mean, I don't like the going back to what you were talking about fear and getting older and stuff. I don't love feeling old and seeing things change, but I think change is a necessary and we need change, and especially the queer community has needed change constantly, and we demand change and we need change further, part of
When it
nature.
comes to relationships evolving, though, and what we should be hoping for, thinking more about, someone might come out and their parents might actually be a bit funny about it, but they still continue that relationship with them because they're still sort of you're my child. Whereas I think nowadays there is more of a push to if someone doesn't accept you fully, then that relationship is not worth continuing. Like from writing the book, like where do you sort of stand on that? Like sometimes relationships aren't perfect and sometimes people don't accept you as fully as you wish that they would.
And that happens so often. I mean, um, especially in my first book, there's some people that do talk about the fact that their family can't accept them, whether it's for religion, whether it's for what they stand for. And I think that's really hard, and it's hard for people. And I think that sometimes, unfortunately, you have to move on. And that's why the queer community has a chosen family often. So a family that they sort of choose because potentially their loved ones can't accept them. And it's sad, it's really sad to witness, but everyone's story is so different. And I think you have to respect that. And also, this is where I say about, especially in my first book, about conversations. Having those conversations are so important because you can understand like points of view, and some people don't accept it. And for those, you have to sort of move forward and almost, I don't know. It's so hard actually because I remember talking to this one guy and his family definitely didn't accept him when he came out, and they said that they never will accept him, which is really sad. And I was just like, how do you deal with that? And he was just like, you deal with it, you evolve, you move forward, you realize that there are other things that are important to you and you mourn it, you try and change it if you can, but you move forward. And I think that's what everyone in life does. They try and move forward. That's a harsh but a beautiful thing as well, that we can move forward and there are people that will accept you. So yeah,
You have
evolution's
to.
scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Scary and
Well,
exciting.
talking of evolution, let's talk about social media. So, social media, love it or hate it, I mean, it's changed all of our lives. Um, and I want to get your perspective on it because I know that for some people, they say, oh, social media is great because actually I can connect with other people like me that I might not have been able to connect with if I'd have lived in a smaller town or whatever it is. So actually, I feel a connection to more people like me and I don't feel as alone. Flip side of that, you've got, people are used to talking in fewer characters now. People are taking things wildly out of context because when something's written down, you don't know how it was said. People get cancelled for jokes that they posted in 2011. So it's become more vicious in that way. And I think in some respects, and I have definitely experienced this in the work that I do, is that just because you've now created a little bubble for yourself on social media where everyone either thinks the same or at least thinks that this topic is a big part of their lives that they need to talk about, actually, they then find it really hard when they go into the real world and people just don't care. It's like no one wants to talk about Star Trek fan fiction or whatever it is. Actually, no
Some
one
people
cares
do.
about that. I know that you do, but the world doesn't. Finding that really hard and that disconnect with sometimes, I don't want to say radicalized, but people can get sort of, you know, built up how important an issue is only to find out that the rest of the world, it's really not that big of an issue for them. So I guess the question on all that is, do you think that social media is helpful or harmful when it comes to building relationships?
Helpful. I
All right.
think I think like, and that will always be my answer about social media. Don't get me wrong. There's platforms like Twitter, whatever it's once people want to call it, um, where unfortunately it's not a safe space, especially for the queer community. Um, but social media, you can't deny, has developed careers, developed relationships, developed potential in different things, given people community, given people acceptance, knowledge. It's taught people things and it continues to do all of these things. So I think you can't deny that social media has this power that's positive because it can reach people, it can help people, it can make people feel less lonely. There's so many positives that I don't think you can say it's not helpful. But it comes with everything in life, with its hindrance. Of course, there's trolling, there's abuse, there's very sad stories linked to social media. So I think it's very much that sort of, scales. I think you have to take it with a pinch of salt often because there is this sort of like social versus real reality. And I think that if you can take it and you can understand that and you can survive that, then social media can be a really powerful tool for any person. I mean, as an author, I'm in the process of releasing my second book, Letters to My Younger Queer Self, which is a fantastic collection of letters from the community to their younger selves. And social media is going to play a huge part in all of that because people will hopefully share the book, share their stories, share their letters, and it encourages other people. So I think social media is a powerful tool and a helpful tool when used correctly. But come on, there's people out there that are using it incorrectly, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, social media is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. So I think the onus is on individuals to kind of understand at least the ways that this could be negative for them, and to try and have some positive things in place to make sure that it doesn't become negative. So for example, I don't really read comments on anything anymore,
Oh,
because
yeah.
I've been cancelled and hate mobbed so many times.
What's been your worst
People
comment?
furious. What's been the worst comment someone said to me?
Yeah, come on, like
I
on
literally
social
don't know.
media.
Like I like delete it all from my memory. I generally know, like, especially early on where you did sort of read the comments. You're, oh my god, they're so angry at me. I don't remember. All I remember is the one where I felt really that there was an injustice, because I wrote an article, and then, as you'll know this, the editor of that particular website changed the headline, and he just changed it because he probably thought he didn't understand the context of what I was talking about, and he thought that something would get more clicks, or maybe it just sounded better with his headline. So he changed the headline, got published, and people went absolutely wild about this headline. They felt that I had, like,
Yeah.
betrayed people,
What was the
and they
headline?
were
Can you remember?
absolutely furious. I don't want to say what the headline was because then you'll be able to identify the publication. I don't want to get anyone in trouble. But anyway, I really don't want to bring this back up. But it was wild, and people were really mad at me. And it was a really weird situation, because I was kind of like, well, if I defend myself, then I've got to throw this publication under the bus that I really want to keep writing for. But if I don't say anything, then people are going to think that I thought that was okay. But like with all mobs, I think that eventually they calm down, and 20 minutes later they're going to be mad about something else. But there is an underlining thing of that, because it builds up your reputation of how people see you. So even if people can't generally remember why they were mad at you, they'll still sort of remember you're on their radar as a baddie, not a goodie. So it can be harmful, but I just don't really listen to it. And I just kind of think, look, I've got so much going on in my life. If you are taking the time out of your day to be so angry with me and to be tweeting something abusive, like, I've already won, really. Because I would never even dream of that. I see things on social media all the time that I'm appalled by, but I would never think of, like, intervening, because what do they care what I think? Like, you just carry on.
I used to be exactly the same and be like, oh my gosh, I feel like I should reply to this, but people don't need to hear it sometimes. I think there's a time and a place. I remember I was promoting Gay Man Talking, and I went on Steph's Pack Lunch on Channel 4, and I did this really awkward wave where I just went like this. And I remember like reading online, like someone was just like, oh, someone said a really lovely comment about the book and said like, oh my God, this is going to help so many people. Thank you for it. And underneath, this guy who didn't have a photo put, yeah, but I bet he's in bed. And I was just like, wow, oh gosh, where did that come from?
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, it's one of those things. So I just try and not read the stuff. I'm more of a, I'll post the things I need to post. I'll interact with the people I need to interact with, but I'm really not there to be made to feel bad about myself. And if I think what's really interesting, and I can't remember who talked about this, I think it might have been Joanna Lumley. Maybe. But anyway, someone was saying at some point, like, back in the old days, if you were annoyed with someone, like, say if, you watched something on the television when there were three channels and you were annoyed, you had to, write out a letter and say how annoyed you were. Like, put it in an envelope, find a stamp, find the address for it, walk to the post office and post that letter to that presenter or whatever it was. Which, by the time you get to the post office, 90% of people have been like, I've calmed down now. Doesn't really matter. But I think it's now so easy to just da 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 da, and you've typed it in the heat of the moment and press send, and send to the world, not just to one presenter you're angry at. You've pressed send to the world. I think it's almost a bit too quick to do it now, and I don't care to read someone's in the moment anger. So my thing is now, if you're really angry with something I've done, write it down, send a letter, put a stamp on, and I'll read it. But
Oh,
I'm not
that's
going to read anything
nice.
angry online.
When you couldn't like sort of reach someone quickly, I reckon your words were so much more considered, and like you thought
Yeah.
about it a lot more, and you didn't act out of that passion, which
Yeah.
a lot of the time online is.
Which I think is better. Like, if people have had the time to be more considered in what they're saying and how they want to say things, they've ripped up the letter 3 times and written it out again because now they've really got a good mind on what they want to say. I think that that was a much better way to communicate, but here we are. Anyway, Daniel Harding, I would say you are one of the most positive people I know.
Mm?
You seem to take punches as they come. You approach life with a sense of humor that I really quite like. And you keep things quite interesting. Like, you're one of those people, it's never boring when you're around. And even when you're a little bit down about things or there's a problem, you'll still have this undercurrent of being upbeat. So I want to know, does that come naturally or have you had to work at that?
First of all, can you write that down and put it on my dating profile? Because I think that's going to hook someone. Does it come naturally? Yes, the positivity. I always want to be positive. I remember when I was younger and I just wanted to be that person that was always sort of smiling because, life's hard sometimes. And especially growing up, especially when I was in the closet and I thought, oh, I've got to find something that makes me happy. And I've sort of continued that throughout my life and bred that happiness. And I feel like for me, I enjoy being happy. So for me, positivity, as annoying as it might be to some people, I feel like is important. It's a part of me. So thank you for that. That was such a great roundup. Funny, I'm not sure, but I'll take. Thank you very much,
You're
Lewis.
definitely funny. It's
You,
funny
mate.
and quick. What I like about you is you're quick with it. I would just never have thought of whatever joke you've just said, like at the speed you come up with things. And I think that is like, I don't think you can teach that, like the quickness with how good you can come up with something funny to say.
Well, again, I'll take that. Thank you very much. Again, write my dating profile, please. I think you'd have a better go at it than me. I think
Well,
for
Daniel,
me,
you're the writer. I mean, how hard was it to write your book if you can't write a dating profile bio?
it's easier to write a book than a dating profile. Come on.
Is it?
You've never had to do that. So
I know.
let's be honest, okay? Because you're always in relationships.
Always in the relationship. Last time I was on a dating app, there were no dating apps. You took out an advert in the newspapers, and that was it.
Exactly. I turned that page. Um, no, I think positivity for me and making light of situations is my way to sort of deal with things. And I think, like, for me, if I can turn something into, a little bit of a joke or make light of a situation that's perhaps a little bit intense, it relieves some pressure from me and it makes me less nervous and less like in fear of realities. And I think that's my sort of coping mechanism to be a jokey, sort of light-hearted person. But also, I see so many people who need help, and I need help as well at times. And I think that if you can be positive, listen to someone, give them some light, give them some humor, but give them your ear, then that is so much more important than anything else you can do. And I think that if I can be that person for someone in a jokey but sensitive way, then I'll always be there. And it's hard at times because it's draining, like to, try and remain positive, especially in situations that perhaps aren't positive at all. But I think in the outcome later on, it's always great. And I feel like, and I've had many moments where I'm not feeling as positive, but you try and find light in that. And I think it's a good way to be personally for myself. I know people are completely different. I mean, my mum absolutely hates me cracking jokes. She says they're inappropriate and she says they don't help anyone.
Oh my god, how cutting from your mom. They don't help
Well, she's
anyone.
my biggest critic. But yeah, but I love her, obviously. But yeah, no, I think that for me, being positive and jokey is my sort of way of getting through life. And I hope that comes through in my writing as well, in the sense that I try, even on the serious sort of subjects that I approach, to bring light with it, because I think there's so much dark in this world, especially at the moment. And I think that if you can bring a bit of life and funny to the conversation, then it's a
Yeah.
good thing. Also, Lewis, you're very funny too. You're very dry sometimes. I feel like you deliver something and it's sort of like, oh, that was a good little one.
I like to be sarcastic. I think that's my
Mm.
natural happy state, is just being a little bit sarcastic about things. But I like to be upbeat and positive. And I think as well, there are a lot of people that think I need to be more positive and I need to be more upbeat. But what I actually have read about is is that it's not something really that you can learn too much. Like you might be able to have that as your mantra and do sort of daily affirmations and be thinking a little bit more about, I need to stop those negative pathways. But what I've read is something like, I think it was something like 80 to 90% of a person's personality is sort of set. And so if your default is always sort of happy or always sort of negative, it doesn't really matter what happens to you in life, whether you've won the lottery or whether your mom has just died, that actually, although you will have, a sort of period of elation or deflation, you sort of will always level off on how you sort of are naturally day to day. Obviously, there's some give and take out. There's just one study I read, but I thought that was interesting. So I think some people do try and kill themselves of trying to be upbeat and funny, and I know some people that are like, that aren't social people, right? And they'll be like, after half an hour at a party, that I'm exhausted, I need to leave. Like, I just can't do this. Like, I just want to go home and be quiet.
Do you know what though? Some people say hate small talk. I'm like, I love small talk. Are you joking? Small talk is my vibe. I'll do the small talk and you can do the listening. But I don't think you should change who you are. I think like positivity can come and funniness can come from loads of different things. It doesn't have to be sort of this outwardly thing. Like just because you're a positive person doesn't mean you're always saying, "Oh, you go, girl." Do you know what I mean? Like you don't have to
Mm,
be the positive person. You can feel positive as well, and I think that's sometimes more important. So I think if people are trying to change themselves, perhaps the only thing I would say is to try and feel positive, like change that sort of mood, because there's a lot of power in how we feel and think, and I think that that in itself is so powerful.
yeah.
But anyway, everyone should be themselves, and we need all types, don't we?
Yeah, we do. So, a lot of people feel like they are just surviving rather than thriving. So, what is something you do, daily or weekly, that makes you feel like you're living and not just getting by, checking off the to-do list, going to work? Like, what is there anything you do where you think, no, I'm doing this because that makes me feel alive?
Mm. Barry's boot camp. That always makes me feel alive. No, do you know what it is actually? It does link to exercise. I do a run. I try and go for a run every week. I absolutely find it so hard sometimes, but it gets me out. It's cold, often because we are in the UK, but I often think like it clears my head. I don't always enjoy it, and my legs hurt, but I feel alive again. And then after the run, what I do is I go to this coffee shop, or if I'm running somewhere else, I find a coffee shop and I sit there alone and have my oat flat white, just in case anyone's listening and wants to buy me a coffee sometime. And then I sit there and I try and not look at my phone. I try and like decompress from the run and have that moment to myself. I sometimes think, oh, this is really sad. Perhaps I should be meeting a friend for a coffee because it's usually like a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. But actually, it's my thing, and it gives me a reset, and it makes me think, okay, I'm rechecking this. I'm feeling okay, and it allows me to think more than anything else because I think I am 100 miles an hour all week, work, books, social. I don't stop and appreciate. And I think that's what I'm trying to do more of. Stop and appreciate life and where you are and your health and your happiness. And actually, for me, stopping and appreciating makes me survive and thrive
Yeah.
because I kind of think it rechecks myself and I think, okay, actually, do you know what? Touch wood, things aren't as bad as I thought. And that's what I sort of do. And I think that recharge and that moment just to myself really gives me that headspace that I need. Because if someone said, "Are you thriving or are you surviving?" Perhaps outwardly and especially on social, it looks like I'm thriving, but I probably am just surviving. And that is, I think, a lot of people.
Yeah. No, I get that. I recently had a bit of a think about, because I'm always this kind of person that's pushing for, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. Oh my god, I haven't done this and I haven't, achieved this yet. I've got to keep going. What's going on? And I had a feeling the other day. I was like, oh my god, you know what? You might get to sort of like 50, 60 if you're lucky enough to live that long. and look back at like what was the best time of your life, and it might be just right now, because my life is like, running from a TV studio to a job that I love. I've got, young kids running around, and even though I'm always exhausted and I always feel like there's stuff I'm not doing, actually like life is pretty good. And I think that there are probably a lot of people out there that are probably living their best selves, but they're so focused on there's something else I need to be happy, and also life is so exhausting and I'm tired, that they maybe don't even realize it, and they might sort of overcorrect their life and go and do this thing over here where it's like, oh, actually no, I didn't need to move to New York, I was happy in London, like I've gone too far.
You realize actually that sometimes you just need to, that's what I mean about that reflection, because it gives you that sort of moment to check yourself and think, actually check in with yourself. Because often I think that we try and, like you say, change something, but actually it doesn't really need changing sometimes, it just needs an adjustment or whatever.
I think what's interesting as well is that you have some quiet time. I mean, I have a lot of young children, so there is no quiet time. And actually, I think that nowadays with podcasts and things like that, not that I'm saying don't listen to this podcast, but even in those moments where things could be quiet, I'm listening to a podcast or that kind of thing. And actually, now this was definitely a Joanna Lovely thing that was said, was that people don't have time to be bored anymore, or people don't have the opportunity to be bored anymore. Like, if you are on a train, how many people just look out the window, nothing in their ears, and just sort of let their thoughts wander, rather than, no, you'll be on your phone, you'll be listening to something, like there's things going on. And actually, that is something that, and we talk about a mental health crisis going on. I don't think anyone's looking at, well, actually, maybe what we all need is to be a bit more bored.
Yeah, do you know what? That's so funny because I actually thought on that on the tube the other day, and I thought, gosh, look at everyone. Like, no one is just sitting there. And if they are, it's usually like someone, not to be ageist, but slightly older perhaps. And I think that's so true. I think that we're so consumed with tech or something. But that being said, what I would say about your podcast thing is that for some people is switching off. Like some
Mm.
people could be, I don't know, very much on at work, talking to a lot of people and just want to hear something. Do you know what I mean? It's like reading a book or watching something mindless. You have to have that place to go to. There's this thing I do on planes. Here's a hack for you. And I always just do this. Like, I would never on a plane, regardless of how long the flight is, dial into the Wi-Fi or whatever that is. No, the plane is the one place where I am switched off. And that is such a freeing feeling. And I think that I really enjoy it. And what I do is I'll sit on the plane. I really don't want to sit with anyone I know. I want to sit like with just by myself because I love it. It's this one thing. And on my phone or on a tablet or whatever, I'll have downloaded Real Housewives of something. And my God, I do not watch this show anywhere else but on planes. And it is mindless energy coming at me. And I'm just sitting there and it's such a treat. And I might even have a glass of something on that plane because it's the one time where I'm feeling like I'm literally out of this world and I'm not, this isn't me. So on a plane, I feel like you can be your best sort of relaxed state if you're an unnervous flyer, obviously. I hate
Right.
takeoff and landing and I hate turbulence, but hey, give me Real Housewives and a bottle of champagne and I'll be there.
So we are very different people on planes, because I'm the kind of person that's like, "Oh, it's a 5 hour flight. Right. What I'm going to do is completely audit my iCloud and delete all of these like pictures
Why?
of this
Why would you
50,000.
do that?
Right. That's it. I'm getting out 3 chapters of this book. I'm going
No,
to write 3 chapters on the plane. Like,
no,
that's it.
no.
I set myself tasks, and but the thing is, like, I never quite achieve it. I never go through 50,000
I think the
pictures
plane
on
is
my
that
iCloud.
one time where you're not going to get a response from someone because you really can't unless you do dial into the Wi-Fi. But it's that chance to just be like, well, I can't do anything but this. So let's enjoy the movies. Let's enjoy whatever you sort of want to do or sleep. I mean, that is just such a nice feeling when you're just knocked out by that.
Well, now I have children, it's a completely different game, because when we last went on a plane, first of all, I had the context of my other half saying to me, "You do realize, like, we're that family where people cheer and clap when they get kicked off the plane?" And that really played in my head and made me so nervous that our kids are like, "Oh God, we're going to be that family that gets kicked off the plane." So I brought for each of them a massive bag of tricks to keep them entertained and quiet that entire plane journey. But bless my younger son, who I sat next to, he fell asleep as we were ascending and woke up as we were descending. I was like, "You are a dream child, thank God."
That's the dream. That's a dream not just for you, for all the passengers around you. Amen.
Yeah, yeah. My
Yeah.
daughter, not so good, but she was sat by my other half, and she at one point kicked her coffee onto another passenger.
Oh, lovely. It's
All
not a
fun.
plane ride unless the kids spilt a lovely, smelly coffee on you.
Anyway, right, let's get back to looking back at your younger self. What advice would you give him about navigating uncertainty and self acceptance?
Well, this is a very good question, Lewis, because my new book that's out on the 8th of May, little plug there,
Are
letters
you having a book launch and am I invited?
absolutely, of course you are. Get your clothes off and put that book in front of you.
I'll just be there as people walk in, naked, covered in books.
Yeah, well, there's the sales right there. Yeah, so my new book, Letters to My Younger Queer Self, is out on the 8th of May, and it does exactly that. It addresses sort of what would you say to your younger self, and it's a collection of letters from the queer community. And it really, like, I had to obviously contribute my letter, and it really, if you sit down and write that letter, it really makes you think, and makes you think, what would you say to your younger self? And mine was actually quite sad at times. Like, I was very hard on younger me, or I was very hard on myself back then. And it really was, my message was to just sort of like loosen up, relax, take each day at a time and be more comfortable, because I really didn't become comfortable with myself until I was in my 30s. And that really is sad. And I think that's so sad when people can't be who they are. That still happens throughout lots of different people, lots of different genders and different, obviously, sexualities. And I think, unfortunately, if you can't be happy with who you are, often that's a sad state of play. So my one big thing that I'd say to younger me is accept earlier. Come on, mate. Put down those pencils that you're chewing and accept who you are. Look in the mirror and love yourself.
It's hard. Do you know what? I'd say there's so much. I'm definitely that person that's prone to regret, and that's why I think I work so hard. Because I just know I'll be 80 years old and be like, "You should have done this when you were 30. You should have done this. You should have done that." Because I do it now with my like younger self now of like, "Oh, you should have done this when you're in your first year of uni. You should have done that at school. You should have done this." So that's just the way my brain works. But you know what? The whole coming out thing is one thing that I would say I don't really have that many regrets around. I don't have regrets around, thinking I was gay, realizing I was bisexual. I don't have regrets around how long it took me to come out. And you know what's really funny? I was out for a drink recently with a friend who we kind of went through a similar thing at the same time. He's actually gay, and we were talking about someone had messed up, right? And someone had like revealed something that they didn't want to reveal. And I was like, can you imagine us like back when we were like early 20s? Like we would never have made such a foolish mistake. Like no one would have ever known any of our secrets or that we were in the closet. So we were just so like tight-lipped about it. We'd be in a gay club like taking someone home and no one would know about it like that. And I just think, actually, I look back on that period and like thankfully I'm like, oh my god, it was so funny. And even though there were hardships, like I take a bit of a positive story out of it, which is really wild because I judge everything else so badly.
I think everyone is hard on themselves. Like, and I think that's the thing. And you can be hard on yourselves because you're allowed to, sort of thing. But it's funny, isn't it? Because if I could go back and actually change something, I think I actually wouldn't. Like, and I know
Mm.
that's a funny thing, because although there's certain things, and there's one big thing in my life that I always sort of like thinking it's a career thing, where I could have gone to this television show, and my good friend persuaded me not to.
Oh my god.
But even that moment of a career choice, and I thought, is that the right thing? I think, like, in reality, every decision you make sort of shapes who you are and shapes your life. So, as much as there's things that I'd tell my younger self or want to change, I think it's a dangerous concept sometimes. But I hope, especially with my new book, that these letters from older people to their younger selves help the new generation and help people perhaps become comfortable and not make the same mistakes. And I think that's the thing we can learn from. I think everyone can say what they'd say to their younger self and hope that others take that on board, because You've learnt it. You've lived it.
Daniel Harding, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. If people want to know more about you or find your books, where do you want to send people? Where should they go?
So if you know of a site called OnlyFans, I have nothing on there. No, follow me on social. Daniel J Harding is my usual sort of handle. My second book comes out in May, Letters to My Younger Queer Self. It's a brilliant collection of letters, and there's more to come as well. So I'm very excited. But yeah, give me a follow, drop me a message, give me a review. Hopefully not a bad one. But no, it's been really nice chatting to you, Lewis. Do you fancy a Long Island iced tea and a Cosmo soon?
Daniel Harding, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.